All right, welcome back. So in part one, I just sort of jabbered on about what I was doing, and we recorded this drum loop. Okay, so if you want to know how I got that into the Deluge, then make sure you watch part one. Right, so now we're going to, this one I'm just going to edit the start and end points, and then I might do it in the next one or the one after the next bit, but anyway, I'll carry on with the editing part. So we need to get the start and the end points right. Now it depends on what you're going to use your loop for. For a drum loop like this is something that I would want to get in the Deluge, and I would want to probably time stretch it so I can change the tempo up and down on here and sequence stuff along with it. So I'd say that, you know, generally if you're doing a loop, that's the sort of thing you would do. Individual sounds, you might do things differently, but for now I'm going to do it this way. So obviously when we recorded it, we've got a bit of silence at the beginning, so we need to look at the start point first of all. So we're going to hold down Shift and Start. And here we have the new waveform view. The green row is the start of our loop we recorded, and the red line is the end. The one that's flashing is the one that we are editing. And it's really easy just to put your points in. You just kind of just tap on where you want it. So obviously we've not got a massively great high def view of a waveform like you might get on Ableton Push 2 or even indeed in Ableton Live or something like that. But it does a pretty good job of showing you where the first transient is, which pretty obviously is here. Okay, so now... Okay, it's giving us that first bit. You can zoom in. If you just press down on here and turn it there, you can zoom in. So now if I put it right on that first transient, you can probably hear it's just cutting a little bit off. If I go for the bit before, we get in a bit more. Now if we zoom in even more, now if I go back there, we're getting a fraction of silence before it comes in. So obviously that's too early. So I'm going to leave it there, okay, because that's a good start point. We're going to then press Shift and this one, and we're going to get to the end point, which is starting to flash down here. So let's just get it roughly right at the moment. So I'm going to start it from where we had before. Okay, so the second, we're looping and sampling 2 bars. We can see that transient there is the start of the next bar. So if we just put the end there for now. Okay, because you can see that white bar moving across to where we got to. Now that to me sounds pretty good, I think. Now it might be just cut off a little bit short, we'll see. Okay, that's probably because we're getting the start then of the next one, so I think we're going to leave it there for now. If necessary, we can always zoom in and let's try it one more time just there. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for now. I might need to just tweak that a little bit shortly, but we will see. But that's just kind of got the rough start and end points for now. And what will happen is when it records into your kit track, it goes in the recordings. I think it's just called record folder. And it will just give it a number. So it will say recording 1, recording 2, recording 3, and so on. So your best bet is if you've got a lot of those, take your SD card out, stick it in your computer, and you can rename it whatever you want, otherwise you're not going to know what it is that you've recorded. Now we have various different sort of playback modes for our samples. We've got once, we've got cut, we've got loop, and we've got stretch. So what the other thing we've got to try and do is I'm going to go through all those modes in a second as you sort of show you the differences between them. But we'll want to try and get this working so it's like lined up on the grid so we can program other stuff with it and it's going to stay in time. So what we've got to try and do is work out the tempo of this. Now, obviously you can go online and try and find it, or you can do it yourself. I'll show you how to do it yourself. So if we play, what I'll do is I'll do it, let's just do it. So what I'm going to do, the sample mode I'm going to start off with. So we're going to press Shift and this down here, and this is where we get our sample modes. I'm going to do it on once, because what will happen is on once, let's just change that over to there, is the sample plays once, and it's basically, it plays all the way through, always plays the whole way through, regardless of how long the note is on here. Okay, so when you're in once mode, you can't extend the length of the note, it just goes there, and then, okay, and you can see it's kind of re-triggering back there, because I've actually only got a a 1 bar loop thing here. Now, if you notice when I press stop, the sample will play on to the end. Okay, so let me just show that one more time, because see if when it's looping round. Okay, it's re-triggering it each time it hits that note. But if I press stop, okay, that sample is going to carry on playing until it reaches the end point that we just created. So let's just get this as a 2-bar section here. Okay. Now if I play that so while I'm playing that, I'm just going to do the tap tempo thing here. Okay, so it seems to be thinking it's around about 122 beats per minute. So if we put the metronome on, we'll see what happens. Okay, so that sounded pretty much spot on at the moment. We have got a bit of a gap at the end when it loops around. Okay, but we're going to work on that with our different loop modes. If we have a look at cut mode next, go the right way around, which I think is the default setting when it comes in on that. If I put the note in here, it's going to fill up the whole. You can see we get that long note length there. So what happens in cut mode is the sample plays once, but it could be cut short at the end of the note that causes the sound. So when it's filled up the whole thing, it should. Okay, it should loop round okay, which is sounding not too bad. Now, let's say, sorry, let's turn the metronome off. Let's say our note is only that long. What will happen is the sample will keep playing, but it will stop when it gets to here, which is different to the once mode, where it kind of will carry on regardless of the length of the note. Okay, so you can hear it stopping there. So it will only play for the length of that note. And obviously if I stop it midway through the sample's going to stop. So that's the big difference between once and cut mode. The other mode we have is then loop, which in the instruction manual I've got is actually known as repeat, but I think it's been renamed loop. So what happens on this is the sample, what it says in the manual is the sample loops indefinitely until the note ends. So, okay, so it's going to operate fairly similar to cut, but I'll show you a few differences of that in a second. So let's see how that's working on loop. Okay, so you can hear there it's different to cut because it's jumping back too soon at the end. Now that could be because the tempo's too fast. Let's try. Okay, no, so it's still looping. So what we need to do with this is look at our end point and probably make it a little bit later. Okay, it's nearly there. Go on that one. Much better. Perfect. Okay, so that one to me sounds perfect now. Let's put the metronome on with that. Start off one. Okay, so let's just see what that sounds like now. Change that endpoint. Let's see what that sounds like if we go back to cut mode. Yep, that sounds much better. Okay, so if we're only sort of playing it around like that, in cut mode and loop mode are quite similar in that respect, but there are some differences that we'll have a look at in a second. So if I was going to just use it at that speed, I'm fine now with that loop. I'm good to go. Okay, there's nothing else needs to be done with that. But if I want to change the tempo, I need to change the settings, because if I speed this up, okay, obviously it's way out of time. The metronome is now a lot faster than the loop. Let's just get it back to 122. So for this, we would need to go on to time stretch mode. Now, if we do it this way around, now what will happen is it will time stretch it and it will lock in to the BPM. Okay, let's turn the metronome off. Okay, so that now then will enable me to put some other stuff with that, and I can change the tempo, and that loop's going to always stay in time. So let's just stick. I know we'll stick some more drums in it. Let's just go on the. Let's just go to 16. So if we did like. Okay, put a little bit of bass in with it. Okay, so that's what I've just programmed in. Then we can bring our loop back in. And we can slow it all down. Okay, and it all stays in time. So the time stretching does work really well. Thing you've got to watch out for with time stretching, and you can use this as a bit of an effect as well, is that obviously we've got a 2-bar loop there. So if I only put, so that's like the whole bar there, it's going to be in time. Let's get rid of the other things. If I only put in like 1 bar, hold on, get rid of them. Okay, it's going to affect the speed. It's now playing twice as fast. Okay, so you've got to make sure that, I mean, you could use that as an effect. We could have it like in twice. Okay, and let's say by mistake we had this as, if we took it up to like I don't know, 4 bars. Oh, hold on, what am I doing? Speed it back up again. Okay, let's go back up to 122. So yeah, my point is you've got to make sure that your number of bars on your kit track are the same as the number of bars that you are time stretching. Because at the moment you can see here we've only got 1 bar. All right. Hold on, let me get. In fact, that's probably only half a bar, is it? Yes. Okay, so we've got like a really short bar there. And what you'll hear is, okay, it kind of totally messes everything up if you do it that way. In fact, what I wanted to do was get to like a 4 bars. Right. Okay, can we get the whole thing in? Okay, so if it's longer than your loop, you can hear it's going to kind of slow it down to half the speed. So that's quite a useful way if you want to kind of like double the speed or half the speed. But if your time stretch thing isn't playing back exactly how you think it should do, just check your bar length, okay? Because we've obviously got 4 bars there. What we need to do is bring that back down to 2, put that back in, and then it will be okay. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. Okay, so I'm going to leave this portion of the video here. What I'll do in the next one, I'm just going to do a little one just to sort of show you a few different comparisons, a few more comparisons between the different sample modes, just so they sort of make a little bit more sense, because it took me a while to get my head around the different ones. And then I'm going to do one more video in this where I'm going to look at slicing up the loop and doing some stuff with that. Okay, so I'll see you in that next part. Cheers.